Cheap rent, easy visas, better healthcare. That's the promise. But thousands of Americans who moved abroad are quietly moving back. Not because they got scammed, not because these countries are terrible, but because the reality they found looked very different from the YouTube videos that convinced them to go. Before we get into the ranking, let me be completely clear. Not one country on this list is a bad country. Every single one has thousands of Americans living there right now, thriving and genuinely glad they made the move. This ranking comes from recurring complaints by retirees, expats, relocation consultants, and long-term residents who watch the reality change around them. And when you look at all of that honestly, three themes keep surfacing. Costs changed, visa rules changed, and daily life was harder than expected. Let's start where the gap between expectation and reality is now the widest. Number 7, Portugal. Let's go back 5 or 6 years and put ourselves in the mindset of Americans who first started flooding into Portugal. And honestly, you can't blame them. Portugal had everything on the checklist. Safe, genuinely, measurably safe. Beautiful in a way that photographs couldn't fully capture. The light in Lisbon, the tiles, the Atlantic coastline. Healthcare was strong. The people were warm. English was widely spoken in urban areas. And crucially, there was a clear, accessible visa pathway, the D7 passive income visa, that made legal residency feel achievable rather than bureaucratically overwhelming. Then there was the tax angle. The non-habitual resident tax regime, the NHR, gave qualifying new arrivals significant tax advantages for their first 10 years in the country. For American retirees drawing Social Security, pension income, or investment returns, this was a genuinely meaningful financial benefit that made the overall case for Portugal even stronger. So people came. Then more people came. Then it became the most talked about retirement destination in the English-speaking world, with articles in every major publication and YouTube videos racking up millions of views, showing sun-drenched apartments at prices that seemed almost impossible. And here's exactly what happened next. Lisbon rents surged, dramatically, not incrementally. Porto followed. The Algarve, which used to be genuinely affordable coastal living, became a premium destination with prices to match. The hidden gem got found, loudly and publicly, by an enormous number of people, all arriving with the same plan at roughly the same time. And when demand spikes and housing supply can't keep pace, prices go up, fast. The NHR tax benefits were largely discontinued for new arrivals. The version that exists now is different from what people read about in the content that convinced them to move. Retirees arrive expecting the tax structure they researched and discover the rules changed underneath them. The most common regret isn't that Portugal itself disappointed them, it's this specific feeling. I moved for affordability and discovered I arrived after everyone else. They weren't wrong about Portugal, they were just late to it. The fix is real, but requires genuine adjustment. Stop looking at Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve. Portugal has beautiful, livable, smaller cities and interior regions where real value still exists. Learn Portuguese. It changes both your experience and your costs. And budget honestly at $3,000 minimum. Portugal is still an outstanding country. The quality of life, the safety, the culture, none of that changed. What changed is the price of accessing it. And if you think Portugal's affordability problem is unique, wait until you hear what happened to the country that was supposed to be the budget-friendly alternative in the Americas. Number 6, Costa Rica. Costa Rica has one of the most persistent reputations in the retirement abroad world. Stable democracy, tropical climate with genuine biodiversity, a healthcare system regarded as one of the strongest in Latin America, and retiree communities established long enough that the infrastructure of expat life, English-speaking doctors, international grocery stores, social networks, already exists and works. On paper, Costa Rica looks like a nearly perfect retirement destination. But here's where the story gets complicated, and it's something I've talked about before on this channel. Visa requirements and living costs are not the same thing. The income threshold that qualifies you for a retirement visa is not the same number as what it actually costs to live there comfortably. Costa Rica might be the single best example of that gap anywhere in the retirement abroad world. The pensionado visa qualifying requirements can sound reassuringly modest when you first read them. People see that number and think, great, I qualify, I can afford this. What they don't account for is that qualifying for a visa and actually living well are two very different financial calculations. Here's the reality of what happened to Costa Rica's popular expat destinations. Places like Tamarindo, Nosara, and Manuel Antonio attracted retirees partly because they were affordable and partly because other Americans were already there. But that concentration of foreign residents, combined with natural appeal to tourists, drove prices upward fundamentally. A house in a popular coastal expat town costs dramatically more now. Restaurant prices in expat-heavy areas have drifted toward international levels. The common regret sounds identical across different people. The visa looked affordable, living there wasn't. The fix is genuinely available. Costa Rica outside the major expat hubs is a different financial experience. Smaller towns in the Central Valley and less discovered coastal areas offer real value, but require more Spanish and less ready-made expat infrastructure. Budget $2,500 to $3,500 a month, and build that number from current data, not articles written 3 years ago. Costa Rica is an excellent country with genuinely high quality of life, but it is no longer a budget retirement destination, and the Americans who regret it are almost universally those whose plan was built on a version that no longer exists. Number 5. Thailand. Thailand seems almost purpose-built for retirement. The food is extraordinary. World-class street food available on almost every corner for almost nothing. The climate suits people who love warmth and find cold winters genuinely difficult. Private healthcare in Bangkok and Chiang Mai is outstanding. Modern facilities, internationally trained doctors, English-speaking staff, and costs that are a fraction of American equivalents. The expat communities in Chiang Mai, Hua Hin, and Bangkok are large, active, and welcoming. The cost of living, done right, genuinely works for modest budgets. So what's the problem? Because almost universally, the Americans who struggle in Thailand aren't struggling with the food or the healthcare or the cost of living. They're struggling with one thing that gradually consumes more mental energy than they ever anticipated: immigration. Thailand does not offer a straightforward permanent residency pathway for most foreign retirees. The retirement visa, the non-immigrant OA, comes with specific requirements. Financial thresholds that need to be maintained in a Thai bank account. Annual renewal processes requiring documentation and planning. Rules around health insurance that were introduced and updated in ways that surprised retirees on older visa structures. The specifics change, which means staying compliant requires active attention rather than a one-time administrative task. Some retirees handle this with minimal stress. They plan carefully, work with visa agents who know the system, and treat the annual renewal as a manageable task. For these people, Thailand works beautifully. But a significant number arrive having watched the lifestyle content, the beautiful temples, incredible food, affordable apartments, without fully internalizing what ongoing legal residency actually looks like. They get to Thailand, they love it, they commit, and then they encounter the immigration reality. The most common regret here is almost always, I loved Thailand. I hated dealing with immigration. The fix is specific. Arrive with a clear, current, legally sound long-term residency plan built before you get on the plane. Understand the retirement visa requirements in detail. Consider working with a reputable visa service in Chiang Mai or Bangkok who can keep you compliant without it becoming a source of ongoing anxiety. Thailand remains one of the genuinely best lifestyle destinations for retirees who do this homework. But more bureaucracy comes with the territory than the YouTube version of Thailand tends to show. And for retirees who expected a simple immigration experience, that gap is exactly what puts Thailand at number 5. And if visa bureaucracy sounds frustrating, wait until you hear about the country right next door to the United States, where the mistakes people make have nothing to do with paperwork and everything to do with moving too fast. Number 4, Mexico. The wrong city can change everything. Mexico is genuinely one of the best retirement countries on earth. I want to say that clearly and mean it, because Mexico at number 4 on a regret list could easily be misread as a warning against Mexico. And that's not what this is. The healthcare in Mexico's major cities is excellent and dramatically cheaper than in the United States. The culture is rich, the food is extraordinary. The climate varies enough across the country that almost anyone can find a region that suits them. The proximity to the United States, you can drive home if you need to, or fly for a few hours, is a practical advantage that countries on other continents simply cannot offer. American expat communities in places like San Miguel de Allende, Puerto Vallarta, Mérida, and Mexico City are large, active, and deeply established. So, why does Mexico generate significant regret? Because Mexico is not a single experience, and the Americans who regret it are almost never the ones who approached it thoughtfully. They're the ones who made 2 specific, predictable, very common mistakes. Mistake number 1, buying property too fast. I've said this in multiple Mexico videos, and I'll keep saying it because the pattern keeps repeating. The Americans who end up regretting Mexico are overwhelmingly, disproportionately, the ones who fell in love with a vacation destination and bought property based on that vacation feeling. 2 weeks in Puerto Vallarta in February. Beautiful weather, incredible food, friendly locals, a real estate agent who happens to be very good at their job. And suddenly, you've committed to a major financial decision based on essentially 0 actual data about what year-round life there looks like. The rainy season, the noise levels outside tourist season, the neighborhood dynamics that change completely when the tourists leave, the property ownership rules for foreigners that have nuances you didn't fully research. Rent first. Rent for at least a year. This is not cautious advice. It's the single most consistent difference between the Americans who thrive in Mexico and the ones who regret it. Mistake number 2, not researching regional safety conditions specifically and recently. Mexico is an enormously diverse country, and treating it as a single safety environment is like treating the United States as a single safety environment. Certain states and cities have experienced significant changes in recent years. Areas that were fine 5 years ago may have changed. Areas with certain reputations may be perfectly livable for retirees in practice. The US State Department advisories are a starting point, not the complete picture. Talk to people actually living in specific cities right now. Read expat forums for current conditions, not articles from 3 years ago. The common regret sounds almost romantic in its sadness. I fell in love with a vacation destination instead of researching a retirement destination. They're not wrong about Mexico. They're wrong about their specific situation in Mexico, the property they bought too fast, the city they chose based on feeling rather than research, the budget they built on optimistic numbers. Mexico done right is exceptional. Close to home, great healthcare, rich culture, established communities, genuine affordability in the right locations. Mexico done wrong, rushed purchase, wrong city, unrealistic budget, is genuinely costly to fix. The stakes of getting it right are higher here than almost anywhere else on this list, which is exactly why it sits at number 4. Number 3, Ecuador. Ecuador has always had a very specific appeal for a specific kind of retiree. The dollarized economy eliminates the currency risk that makes financial planning complicated in so many other countries. The cost of living in cities like Cuenca has historically been among the lowest of any developed infrastructure destination in the Americas. The highland climate delivers what people call eternal spring, mild temperatures year-round without tropical heat. And the retiree community in Cuenca is large, English-friendly, and well-organized with decades of accumulated expat infrastructure. So Ecuador sounds almost perfect for the budget-conscious retiree. And for years, it delivered reliably enough to become a staple recommendation in retirement abroad content. If you've watched my Ecuador videos before, some of what's coming won't surprise you. The challenge that started generating regret wasn't primarily the safety headlines that occasionally dominate coverage. The real recurring frustration has been infrastructure, specifically power. Ecuador experienced serious electricity challenges that produced extended outages affecting daily life persistently. Not catastrophically, but consistently. When your power goes out for several hours regularly, everything becomes harder. Refrigeration, internet, the small conveniences that make daily life comfortable. It's not a single crisis. It's an accumulation of friction that compounds until it's consuming more mental energy than you expected. The VAT increase made imported goods more expensive in ways that affected retirees maintaining a lifestyle with international elements. And altitude genuinely surprises people. Cuenca sits at roughly 8,200 feet, and some retirees experience persistent fatigue or cardiovascular strain that never fully resolves. The common regret is quiet but consistent. The daily inconveniences became bigger than I expected. Visit before committing. Consider lower altitude cities if health is a concern. Have backup plans for power disruptions. Ecuador's affordability and dollar economy remain real advantages, but it requires more flexibility and practical resilience than the content about it typically conveys. Number 2, Philippines. I actually just got back from the Philippines, and I'll tell you right now, my team and I are putting together a full, in-depth breakdown of the 7 most important cities for retirement there. That video is coming, and if you're seriously considering the Philippines, you'll want to see it before you make any decisions. So make sure you're subscribed because that one drops soon. But here's what I can tell you right now. English is spoken widely and naturally. The culture has deep American connections that ease the transition in ways both obvious and subtle. The cost of living, done thoughtfully, is among the most favorable of any English-speaking retirement destination in the world. And Filipino warmth toward foreign residents is real and consistent in a way that makes integration feel genuinely possible. So why does the Philippines sit at number 2 on a regret list? Not because of costs, not because of language, not because of culture. Because of one thing that retirement content about the Philippines almost never addresses honestly: distance. And what that distance does to you over time. The Philippines is far, not inconveniently far, genuinely, logistically, emotionally far. A flight back to the continental United States is typically 16 to 20 hours, often with a connection, and the cost is significant. For retirees watching their budget carefully, spending $1,500 to $2,500 on an emergency flight home is a financial event, not a minor inconvenience. And emergencies happen. Parents age, children have crises, grandchildren arrive. The retirees who thrive here are generally those who planned for this distance honestly, who budgeted for return trips, built an emergency travel fund, and made genuine peace with being far from family. The ones who struggle underestimated it, thought about it abstractly before moving, and then experienced it concretely the first time someone they loved needed them. The most common regret sounds simple. I underestimated how far away home really is. There's also a location problem within the Philippines itself. Retirees who choose remote islands for maximum affordability sometimes find themselves too far from healthcare infrastructure and travel connections they eventually need. Staying near Cebu, Manila, or established cities like Dumaguete keeps you connected when things go wrong. The fix is practical. Stay near major cities or cities with strong connections to them. Budget honestly for return trips home. And before committing to a specific location, honestly assess your family situation, because the 16-hour flight between you and the people you love deserves serious weight in your decision. The Philippines remains fantastic for the right retiree, but isolation breaks more people than costs do. Number 1. Spain. Spain is the lifestyle dream that doesn't fit every budget. Spain might offer the highest quality of daily life of any country on this entire list. The Mediterranean climate, the food culture that turns every meal into an event, the walkable cities built at human scale, the healthcare system consistently ranking among the strongest in Europe, the cultural richness visible on every street corner, the afternoon pace of life, the long lunches, the evening paseos, the sense that life is meant to be enjoyed rather than optimized. All of that is real, and it's exactly why Spain generates more regret than almost anywhere else, because the gap between that genuine, beautiful reality and the financial reality of affording it in 2026 is wider than most people prepared for. I recently covered the growing tension in several European countries between local residents and foreign buyers driving up housing costs. Spain came up repeatedly, not because it's hostile to foreigners, but because housing affordability has become a serious political issue in cities like Barcelona, Madrid, and Malaga. Anti-tourism protests have occurred in multiple cities. Local residents are increasingly frustrated about being priced out of their own neighborhoods. The visa situation has become more demanding. Financial requirements for the non-lucrative visa have increased, and the supporting documentation is substantial. Housing costs in the cities most Americans want have risen to levels that shock people who research Spain even 3 years ago. Barcelona, Madrid, and coastal areas like the Costa del Sol have all seen dramatic price increases, driven by remote worker demand and foreign investment. There's also a subtler regret worth naming. Some retirees arrive expecting genuine integration, learning Spanish, building local friendships, becoming part of a neighborhood. Instead, they find themselves in expat-dense areas where they never needed Spanish, and the Spain they're experiencing feels more like an international retirement community than actually living in the country. The common version sounds almost philosophical. I thought moving here automatically meant becoming part of Spain. Smaller Spanish cities offer quality of life that rivals famous destinations at meaningfully lower costs, but require genuine Spanish ability and comfort with less expat infrastructure. Budget $3,000 to $4,000 minimum for major cities, and learn real, functional Spanish. Spain is outstanding, but the affordable, easy version that exists in most retirement content requires either a larger budget or a very different set of expectations. Notice something important about everything we just covered. Not one country on this list is actually bad. Portugal is beautiful. Costa Rica is extraordinary. Thailand is genuinely wonderful. Mexico is one of the best retirement options on Earth. Ecuador is affordable and unique. The Philippines is warm and English-friendly and financially accessible. Spain is arguably the highest quality of daily life available to retirees on this entire planet. The regret doesn't come from the countries. The regret comes from the gap between expectation and reality. And that gap almost always traces back to 3 sources. Costs that changed while the content people watched didn't. Visa rules that shifted in ways nobody updated their research to reflect. And daily life friction that the highlight reel version of these destinations never showed. The people succeeding abroad right now aren't finding perfect countries. Nobody finds a perfect country because no perfect country exists. What they're finding is a country that matches their actual budget, their actual lifestyle needs, and their actual, honestly examined expectations. That match, not perfection, but genuine alignment, is what turns a relocation into a retirement, and a retirement into a life. Most of the problems in this video trace back to 3 things: rising costs in popular destinations, changing visa structures, and the social and political pressure that follows heavy expat saturation in certain cities and regions. And those 3 things tend to cluster in the same places: The places that got famous, that generated the most content, that attracted the most people, and consequently changed the fastest. That's exactly why I put together a separate video on English-speaking island destinations, places that haven't experienced the same level of saturation yet, where the math still genuinely works for retirees on realistic budgets, and where the gap between what you see in the content and what you find when you arrive is still relatively small. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on your screen right now. Click that. I'll see you there.